She still hadn't figured out what exactly she would tell all those people back home in Bell's Corner. Even if the gig wasn't top secret, and she could tell them about it, the people from her hometown wouldn't be too impressed with her for writing that column. Every kook and crazy across the nation had come out of the woodwork asking for advice on topics better left unmentioned. It was like their goal in life was to shock her. And since she'd started out as unshakable, she was getting a run for her money. That's what had her running late today. Her 9 to 5 was always creeping into her private time and even weekends, and she was getting darned sick of it. But as cranky as she was feeling, she had to admit that her mood just brightened a smidgen as she watched the officer approach her car. Probably about her age, or not much older. Good looking. Really good looking. In fact, strangely familiar. She leaned out the window, then tugged her glasses off at just the moment he glanced down at her. Sound innocent, get a warning, and get back on the road. Good morning. Something wrong, officer? Her lead foot had given her plenty of practice in this, and usually it worked.
License and registration, please.
So you're going to be like that. Fine. Yes, sir, she smiled. He didn't. She tugged the paperwork from the console and handed it his way.
License.
Right. She leaned toward the passenger seat and rummaged through her purse, coming up with everything but her driver's license. She slipped a piece of gum from a pack and popped it into her mouth. Gum? He didn't look amused.
Do you have a license, ma'am?
Lighten up, man. Yes, of course I have a license. Finally, she laid her hand on her wallet. Right here. She snatched her driver's license from its slot and handed it over. As he took the license, she still had that I've seen this guy before feeling and just had to ask, do I know you? He glanced down at her license.
Being as you're from Washington, D.C., I don't know how our paths would have crossed.
Oh. His tone really said, I've heard all this before. Why did her mouth always act before her brain gave it permission? His brows lifted, and he gave her a little nod, as if he agreed with a thought running through her head. Was he some kind of mind reader?
Thank you. I'll be just a moment.
She couldn't pull her gaze from that side mirror as he walked away. Nice walk. Athletic types with light blonde coloring usually turned her head, but there was something about this brown-haired guy in a uniform that held her attention. Was it attraction, or more that he seemed familiar? An insistent little boing came from the dashboard. Low fuel flashed on the display. Why had she thought things would work out okay today? At this rate, she'd never make it to Bell's Corner. If only that were true. She wasn't even halfway there yet, and the trip was making her more anxious by the mile. As if having to attend her ex-husband's wedding wasn't already bad enough. Aunt Kathy had convinced her that it was important for her to be there when Tripp got remarried, or else people would talk. But that wasn't what made her give in. It was that Aunt Kathy had apologized. After all these years, she'd said she was so sorry she hadn't been there for Savannah when all that stuff had happened with her parents. More importantly, she'd said she'd never blamed her. Aunt Kathy had always been her favorite, but when things went bad, everything she'd known in that town was different. Everybody, everything. If she went back, it would certainly slow down the rumor mill, at least for a little while. That was one thing you could count on in a small town. If they didn't know the truth, they'd make up something that made sense to them, and somehow that always wound up worse. So she'd made peace with going back and showing her face after all these years. The thought of that made her feel a little sick. Or maybe it was just the ticket. Or maybe the ticket was a sign of more trouble to come. It was bad news, no matter how you looked at it. Regrets. She had plenty, and now agreeing to make the hometown visit was inching toward the top of the list. Think positive. Don't put any negativity out into the universe, and the universe won't serve any up. Evelyn was always preaching that to her. Maybe enough time had passed that people wouldn't remember the reason she'd left town. Doubtful, but one could hope.